Brian and Sydney, welcome to the podcast studio. How are you guys doing this morning?
Thank you, Molly. Doing well.
Kidding, it's 75 degrees outside and sunny. Thank the Lord. Spring is here.
It's been a really long winter and a lot of spring teases, especially for those of us in the Northeast. You get a 70-degree day and then the next day it's 30 degrees.
Yeah.
It's very cruel.
My poor goldfish at home in the pond don't know what to do.
Struggling?
Dive.
Go deep.
Well, hopefully it's here to stay.
Yes.
It feels like it. Guys, we're here today, I guess for a couple reasons. One, Sid, you were talking about this is your first big rock, but we're rolling out a pretty cool new tool that's based off of work that we've had in the past or resources that we've had in the past, but we've elevated it. And we're talking about the Out of the Hourglass Scorecard. Now, Out of the Hourglass, Brian, you and I have done conversations on what does it mean to get out of the hourglass. That's been a podcast we've re-released now at least once. But why is it important when we think about it from a tool perspective? Why are we calling it the Out of the Hourglass Scorecard?
Well, let's be sure, and let's start with make sure everybody's on the same page with this concept. Hourglass is, I don't have enough time to get everything done. I'm a supreme doer. At the end of the day, I have phone calls to make. I have bills to pay. Get home at night, the babies are crying. I have more bills to pay. This business isn't serving my life. I'm stuck in the hourglass. And the key is to get out of that and build a team.
And I think it's important. You've said it a lot and said you've seen it with different clients. Business owners will be stuck and are stuck in the hourglass at different periods of time. Sure. So, a lot of clients you're working with, Sid, are in the $1 to $2 million range, and they're stuck in the hourglass in a very different way that an owner in a $5 million or $8 million company is. That's fair to say?
Yeah, I just got off the phone with a company that's $4 million. He's like, I'm still sales manager. I got to get out of the hourglass, right? So he has gotten out, but there's a new one.
Correct. It means there's a new role that he needs to let go of and a new role he needs to hire for. Because what worked at $2 million doesn't work at $4 million. Yeah, so there's different stages. And it's a good example of kind of how you've thought about this tool, Sid. Mm-hmm. So backing up a little bit, a tool that a lot of our listeners are probably familiar with, especially our clients and folks who have visited our website, they've been able to access what we've called the Business Systems Checklist. Brian, this is a tool that you and the team developed probably 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, gosh, it literally was 2024, and I'm doing a inventory of all the business systems. I remember I'm up late at night trying to sell a program. I was like, well, so what is this program? I remember it was a list of 136 business systems. Now, Sid, why is that antiquated?
I think in this age, now in 2025, if people see a sheet and see 136 systems, that's a little frightening. So it's
babies.
Yeah. It's a lot to process and a lot to comprehend. So one of the things in how this big rock came about was how can we still have those systems, still honor those systems, still want to implement those systems with our clients, but in a more manageable way, in a more bite-sized way. So through that big rock comes the out of the Hourglass Scorecard.
Why did we make it a big rock?
Because it stopped getting used. I was really upset about, 9 months ago when I learned no one is using the Business Systems Checklist. How could you not use this? Yeah. It's how we start. Yeah. And they said, well, Brian, it's overwhelming. Well, then we did evolve to something else, right?
Right. Yeah. So the first step was really, it actually came about through a training that Brian, Maureen, and I were in. And we also started to think about the Business Systems Checklist in relation to a functional org chart and how those systems interact with each role or function of a business when you look at it on an org chart. And then from there, we started to look at, okay, what processes are still relevant? Also another system, not just the Business Systems Checklist, but also the implementation ladder, which is a big one that our current clients would have seen. That is, again, a great tool, but now coming and taking pieces that made them both great and building a different tool and hopefully a better tool on that. But with the Hourglass Scorecard, we really decided that it was best to be broken up by revenue level. And so that's how we started initially, was looking at, okay, instead of it being one overwhelming checklist, how can we break this up into different pieces by the revenue that the client is going to be entering us at and where they're looking to go and grow.
So we have revenue level, we have org structure, so what part, get work, do work, count work,
yep,
sales and marketing, ops, finance and HR.
Yep.
The other thing that that I factored in was a tool we use when companies want to sell and know what their value is. We call that the business multiplier valuation checklist.
Yep.
And so we integrated that in to get a score. So that tool says if I have all these things in place, my multiple of EBITDA can be 4.5. Or if I don't have an ops manual or a sales rep, my multiple is only 2.5. So we sort of brought those together to create this Hourglass Scorecard that anybody can use to help focus implementation efforts.
It makes so much sense because, what we talk about is, building a value business and not a lifestyle business. And part of getting out of the hourglass is about building value. So it makes sense that this scorecard is really a kind of a culmination of all of the, with the goal in mind.
Yeah. And many of our tools that we had previously.
Sid, I'm so glad that we, invited you to be on this podcast because originally it just was going to be Brian and I talking about this. And then yesterday, during our communications meeting, we were talking about the scorecard and sharing it with the other coaches, and you're talking on about it. It's like, we got to get the owner of the Big Rock on this podcast, not just the advocate for it.
Yeah. This is a big deal for me. For years I've been the content guy, and so now developing rocks and assigning people like Sid to work through those rocks. I mean, Sid is very smart, very diligent, and gets things done. And so we had a great partnership.
Yeah.
She would bring things to me. I would edit it and give her more. She would then refine it. This is also getting out of the hourglass as a leader, having owners of big rocks. It's not you, the owner.
Yeah.
That is key.
Huge.
The other thinkers involved.
What was that process like for you, Sid? I mean, this particular rock could feel like a daunting assignment.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, and many of our listeners and clients may relate to this. Not only was it my first big rock, but it kind of landed right as I was transitioning into being a coach full-time as well. So there was a small business, multiple hats wearing component to it too. So for me, it was the first time that I had to be more diligent, I would say, about managing my calendar and managing my time. And okay, I'm meeting with these clients here, I'm doing this type of work, and now needing to pull out of that mindset and into the brainstorming big rock mindset. So that was an interesting process for me to work through, but it was fun. I mean, it's fun to pull away and, play in the sand and look at some of these things that I haven't looked at since, I first started, like really getting into, like we said, the implementation ladder, looking at Brian's multiplier checklist that he's been doing a lot of work on with the new building value peer group and things like that. So, I think I've learned so far that as a coach, I can get really, really deep into what my clients are doing and helping them and things that are relevant to their needs. But then working on a project like this also allowed me to pull out and look at things on a greater scale. So, like I said, at times it was a time management project as well, but it was really fulfilling to be able to know that it was my first time to really contribute to something so big for the company.
That will be utilized by every new client that comes through the door, but will also be applied to existing clients. I mean, the associate coaches last night were like, this is a great tool to kind of take a current client, walk them through where they're at. I mean, a lot of them probably have a lot of these systems in place, but where are the gaps? Where do they need, where do we need improvement so that building value, that continuous improvement still happening? What's
interesting is that there's different, we call it a test or different surveys for different revenue sizes, right, Sid?
Different scorecards.
Yeah, and so the $5 million company has its own survey, but it's going to go back and there's going to be things that they don't have in place that a $1 to $3 million business should have. So it's like a tree growing. You can't forget the roots in all these areas.
And we see that so often with new clients that we're working with that are, bringing in high revenue levels but don't have the systems in place, and they're feeling the pain.
Yes.
And they know one strong breeze, one strong big event really knock them down. And if you're to build value, you're building armor.
Yeah.
Essentially. That's the goal here. So let's talk a little bit about the scorecard itself. It, as you mentioned, Sid, you looked at it from like an organizational function approach. It's broken down into categories like CEO responsibilities, operations, marketing, sales, Were these chosen specifically based upon organizational functions?
That's correct. Yeah. So the kind of the first step in the Big Rock process was we actually had a different iteration of it before it was more of a scorecard where we did lay everything out by, the role and the responsibility in the business that each process would fall under.
Okay.
And I think that helps too, because we've talked about processes, but one of the things also that's included in the scorecard is people. And when hiring a certain person is also usually needed. So by looking at it by function on an org chart, it allows for that as well to say, okay, one huge step of getting an owner out of the hourglass, for a smaller company potentially is a bookkeeper, hiring a bookkeeper, right? Then hiring your first salesperson, and our larger companies hiring a controller, things like that. So we kept those on the scorecard as well.
What I love about it is it takes the organizational chart to the next level, even further than Traction does. Traction, if you met that book, they talk about an accountability chart, and so this takes that accountability chart to a whole new level and really just breaks it out into all the things underneath the different functions, and then the revenue sizes to put them in play, and the positions and when. So it's a growth model.
Yeah.
Yep.
So apply to all of these areas, all of these kind of survey points that you're going through, they're weighted. How you respond to them is weighted 1 through 5. How did you guys go about determining the weight of each of these items that they should be receiving?
Yeah, so I feel pretty passionate about this piece of it. I've been doing this a long time. So we weighted them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with a 5 weight. So a 5 weight, someone has something in place, they give himself a 5, so it's 25 score, right? And it adds up. Someone gives themselves a 3, it's a 15 in that particular area. So the things that got the 5 weights first involved the CEO knowing what they want. So a primary aim, a vision, what do I even want anyway? Because if we don't have that, then the other stuff doesn't matter. Then after that, it was financially. Things like an accounts receivable process that keeps days sales outstanding less than 30 days, having a budget in place. And the third 5 was really customer-based stuff, mining your customer relationships, those type things. And then we went down to a 4, and your sales process, your ability to get work, that would get a 4, for instance. And the things that got a 1 were like subsystems, like do I have a pre-job checklist? So things like that, end of job closing. So that was sort of the theory behind it, giving a objective view of a subjective tool.
So for listeners trying to imagine this, and because I mistook it or had a mistake kind of when I first thought about it. So the items themselves are weighted, and the person who's working through it is selecting in progress, completed, not yet. So based upon their answers, the score is being transferred over. Is that correct?
And they're giving themselves a number as well. So a 5 through 1 number of how well this process has been implemented.
Got it. Okay.
And then the in progress, kind of the status column is more geared towards the implementation of it. So that way they're scoring themselves initially, and then with their coach, we're able to go through it and say, okay, maybe we want to tackle these weighted 5s first, right? The big hitters first, and we can actually have a status for their progress moving forward.
In working with new clients, how does that change the game with how you get started?
To me, it completely changes the game. I mean, I think in our sales conversations, we have conversations about their pain points and things that are, but that also could be what's top of mind to them on that week, right? And then I work with clients maybe a month or 2 after I've talked with them, and I start drilling in, and we talk about primary aim and vision first thing, but then I realize, okay, actually there's something that more foundational that we need to tackle first. And so going through this, first thing can really identify that quicker. And we could change maybe the way that we were going to do our business planning program in order to tackle some of those foundational things first to bring more value and for them to be more successful in their business. And of course, as always, getting the owner out of the hourglass.
Yeah. Most people don't know where to start. They have a vision, but they don't know where to start. And I would say, work backwards, B to A. B is your vision, illuminate the path back. These these are the building blocks towards your vision. And this helps. And for existing clients, it's the North Star. It's to bring them back to what they need to have in place to be solid.
Where do you both think for existing clients who may run through this, where are they going to likely identify the biggest gaps? What are they missing?
Well, I mean, I think there's still a position issue. I think there's the clarity over role of a sales manager, an operations manager, a field manager, bookkeeper, and the tasks beneath them, and to really let go. I mean, the truth of it is, it's hard to let go.
Yeah.
Because when we do it, you sort of know how we do it. It's quality, and we're afraid. We're afraid of the brand. We're afraid if we let other people run something, they won't get it. And so really, we need to become better leaders of people. Yeah, it's putting the right people in place to run those systems, I think is still the biggest challenge that our companies face.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing to say that the system is implemented, but by who is a conversation that we'd be having with our existing clients. Because sure, like Brian, you said at the top of the podcast, you may be doing this at 7:00 at night at your dining room table, but should you still be doing that at 7:00 at night on your dining room table? Yeah. So I think for existing clients, it's a lot of, yes, you may have these things, but who is doing them? And also I see this as a growth trajectory, where a client could look at the higher revenue than they're currently at scorecards. And if they have those growth aspirations, really look at what is it going to take to get there and develop a plan with their coach to get there.
The other thing I would add, one of the most important things on here that got a 5 rating is I just got off the phone with a private equity guy, actually, and we were talking about what makes a business attractive to buy. He said the first thing, you got to have a digital operations manual. A digital operations manual. That's a good one. I think if you were to survey a lot of the companies that we work with, it's not there.
They're trying,
but that digital having so when an admin assistant comes in brand new, here's the directions, here's the script, here's the CRM, here's what you enter, here's what you ask, and
a true plug and
here's
play.
What you go,
right.
and it's digital. Like I can open up the folder system and I could easily find it. That is really big. Yeah. So I mean, take that away. The other piece that we also talk about is process documentation.
Yeah,
related to that,
one.
right? Talk about that for just a minute.
Yeah. So in relation to your operations manual, having your process documented, and Molly, we did a podcast on that and the importance of that. But really crucial, and I think this is something in relation to your crisis planning and your crisis planning podcast that you guys are going to record. But can someone look at a document workflow and understand how things operate in your company, whether that's an outside person coming in, if you're looking to sell your business, or a new person, a new operations manager that you're hiring on? Do we know what happens when the phone rings to when the invoice is deposited in the bank and
every
fulfilled?
step of the way? It's an experience. It's like water running through a plumbing system or money running through a system and dumping money in the pot at the end. What's everybody's role? What steps? What systems get used? Where are our problems? What's not scalable? Do an as is and then a should be process. So that's an important part of the scorecard test.
Well, what you just said too, the as is versus the should be. There is a kind of current state and future state component to the scorecard, right? How does that work all in?
So the objective is that every line item on the scorecard is at a 5 in terms of implementation by the correct people, I would say. So when you are running through your scorecard, it's almost, we tried to gamify it a little bit in that you're seeing the ideal score or the top score that you can get, and then you're getting in real time what your score currently is. And so the idea is that this score or metric is constantly in front of our clients, and we're constantly talking about it and seeing that tick higher and higher and higher to eventually reach that ideal score or the maximum score for that revenue level.
And then you graduate to the next revenue level.
And then you graduate.
Yeah. I mean, so right now we've got 3 stages built out, 3 revenue frameworks, let's say. What's next for this tool? What's the next stage you're looking at building out? Yeah,
so what's next is Brian and I are going to continue our partnership on this and work on what we would consider our higher revenue, so 5 million and up, 10 million, 20 million, and really talk about, what processes and how things look for those businesses and where they're at and where they're looking to be.
Yeah, I mean, start thinking about things like service line expansion, geographic expansion, board of directors in place, succession planning. You get to be bigger. Merging, buying companies. There's a lot of things. Bigger companies are talking about strategy and multiple level of leadership development, those kind of programs.
I love it. I mean, it's systems for scalability and allowing you to assess where you're at and where you want to go.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's good stuff. Well, for those clients who work with us, this tool is being rolled out. It's a little bit in beta testing phase, but if it's of interest to you, talk to your coach. If you are a new client or you're thinking about, reaching out, you will likely see this as the beginning kind of stages of our relationship. Ryan?
How can we get this out to the masses? I wonder, you don't attach it to the podcast, do you?
No, we have to decide how we want to let this go free.
Yeah, so if you're not in our program but have interest and would like to see this, reach out to Molly at nolancg.com, and I'm sure Molly will send you a copy.
Be happy to do so. The business system checklist is still on our website for those who are just kind of are not quite sure that they're ready for the Hourglass Scorecard quite yet, kind of want to just get a look at the system options that exist in a business. But yes, please reach out to me if you'd like to see a copy of the scorecard and we can get it over to you. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
That's
well
fun.
done.
Thanks.
Good
Welcome.
stuff.
Thanks for having me, Molly.
Until next time.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.